Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shaping and Enriching a Winning Culture Forum. I'm your host, Thomas Papp, partner here at the HR Congress. We shall have a very exciting 90 minutes. Thank you to our sponsoring partner, Workhuman. Workhuman is shaping the future of work and the world through its people and global technology, helping forward-thinking companies energize their cultures, unlocking their employees' passion and potential, and unite their workforce around the shaping purpose. Workhuman is building cultures of gratitude and human connections for leading global brands, and that starts with their own. When I started to think about this webinar and started to read up a little bit more about some of the concepts, what really stood out for me when I was reading the evolution of work findings from the Workhuman IQ Spring 2023 International Survey Report. Employees feel more connected to their colleagues than their organization's culture. The survey highlights the significance of building strong connections among employees. Here is a little snippet from the report. You can download the full report from the handout section of the webinar. So please go ahead and download that later on, or you can do that now as well. Some of the fundamental issues that come to mind when we're thinking about culture and how important it is that to get it right. Lack of clarity, varying interests and values, team dynamics and collaboration if it doesn't work properly, influence of immediate environments, a lot of environment factors, connection and engagement. So these are some of the fundamental issues, but there's so many more that really build culture. To address some of these challenges, what do we do? Clearly define and communicate the company culture, provide opportunities for employees to participate in shaping the culture, foster cross-functional collaboration, implement communication and engagement initiatives, recognize and celebrate both individuals and team achievements that align with the desired culture, encourage leadership to lead by example. So investing in a strong company culture is critical for success. It impacts employee engagement, productivity, retention, collaboration, innovation, and overall workplace satisfaction. And it is not easy. It's a difficult task, and there's a lot to it. And some of the questions that come to mind for me is, how can HR leaders effectively drive transformational change to create and nurture a winning culture within their organization? What are the key aspects of building and sustaining a winning culture, including leadership, communication, teamwork, and employee experience? How can HR leaders leverage the latest tools and technologies to foster a culture of continuous improvement, recognition, and collaboration in their organization? So, ladies and gentlemen, we will have 3 sessions today. So the first session shall be a keynote fireside chat between myself and Stuart Curtis, who's the Senior Director of Global Talent Development at Workhuman. The session will be on driving business excellence through creating and shaping and enriching a winning culture. This shall be a 25-minute session. After that, we shall be jumping into a presentation from Maria Scholma, Chief HR Officer, Head of Employee Experience and CSR at Nationale Nederlanden. So Maria shall be presenting on boosting profit, productivity, and retention through a culture of employee experience excellence. After that, we shall have a panel discussion on understanding the role of great company culture in high performance leadership, joined by Jim Rotman, Global Head of Culture, Innovation and Belonging, Volvo Cars, Hayley Farrell, Global Wellbeing and Resilience Director and Affinity Group Program Manager at Arcadis, and Donna Louise Fitzpatrick, Manager of Talent Development at Workhuman. Ladies and gentlemen, please do use the polls and the Q&A, and do download the handouts. Be interactive. That's why it's a live session, so we can see your questions. There is a Q&A section, so please do use it, and we shall try to get to some of your questions after each session. And if we can't, then you can always reach out to the speaker, the presenter, on LinkedIn or through us, and we would be more than happy to put you in touch with them. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Stuart on the stage. Stuart, great to have you with us.
Hi, Thomas. Thank you so much for the time on the agenda today. I'd, first of all, just like to thank yourself, Mihaly, and the HR Congress for the opportunity to connect with so many people. I'm looking at the chat channel. There's people from Swaziland, the US, Brussels, Croatia, etc. But I'd also like to take the chance to thank everybody who's joined this session, who's joined the discussion this morning and is chatting on the chat window, going to participate in polls, etc. I'm usually one of you, so I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and discuss this topic. So very excited to get into it, Thomas. I'm conscious that we have somebody based in Newcastle, Australia. Oh my God. I'm gonna stop looking at the chat. I'll just get distracted by where people are. As you said, my role in Workhuman is looking after talent development. So we connect very closely with the talent acquisition team. We're responsible for developing and retaining our talent as much as we can. My focus is very much around career development, personal, professional, and trying to enrich the lives of all of our humans. And I know we're talking about culture. I'm sure you want to ask some structured questions, so keep me on track. Otherwise, I'm happy to yap all day. It's the Irish gift of the gab, I'm afraid.
Perfect, Stuart. Perfect. Indeed, I mean it's such a turbulent time. We've just finished COVID. There's the hybrid work environment that came out of that, the recession, war. There's a lot of tension in the world, and I guess that's why my first question is I think very timely on that. Is how can we define workplace culture in 2023, and why is it so important in your view?
So this is a great question. I think workplace culture is always going to be, how we do things in an organization, and it's established, it's well ingrained, it's not changing. Sorry, the poll just popped up for me there. I'll just eliminate it. I think it's for myself, just to give you an example, just to personalize it. And I'm super conscious that we have the Workhuman IQ survey and the Gallup and Workhuman research that we're going to share with people. So rather than giving data and statistics, I'd rather give insights that are actionable to people. It's what I always appreciate when I join sessions like this. So I'm a highly introverted person, even though I've got the gift of the gab of the Irish, but I'm very introverted, very quiet person. And I joined Workhuman in March 2020. As you say, literally at the start of the pandemic, we were told in Ireland to go home. 1 week later, I started with Workhuman. So how did I feel really connected to this organization? How did I feel connected to its culture when everybody was working from home? And that's the why is it important? I felt connected because as I walked in the door, as I joined the organization, my line manager, the vice president of HR at the time, now senior vice president, sent a welcome note to me. But the welcome note wasn't just directly to me. It was on our recognition platform celebrating me joining the organization. And lots of our humans posted little notes, welcome notes to me, very personalized, very specific, how they're looking forward to working with me. And then as I started my journey here, as I completed projects, as I completed, bits of work early on in my role. Again, people were celebrating that, but not just my manager. People I worked with, peers, were noticing what I did, and again, celebrating that through recognition. So the why it's important, that's where I lean on the statistics and the insights. And it's quite frightening for me as a HR professional to read the Workhuman IQ survey. Over 4,000 employees contributed to it across the UK, Europe, and North America. But it's showing that over 30%, 37% of people are actively looking to move roles in the next year from an organization. So that's quite worrying. And as you say, it's all about the economic turmoil, the post-COVID wave still hitting, and I suppose to fend that off somewhat, to try and retain our talent as much as possible, we've got to create that connection within the organization. But 22% of those surveyed were talking about that they would take a pay cut, or stay at the same but move so that they could work in their preferred way of working. And I'm not saying that every organization has to give every employee exactly how they want to work, in all instances. Sometimes that's not possible, but you can connect with your employee and give them a voice in it, which is really important. And then nearly 1 of 5 workers are afraid of losing their job in the next 12 months. So how do we mitigate against that? Well, usually we mitigate against that with things like psychological safety. I'm quoting Amy Edmondson, where it's that, lack of fear of retribution, lack of fear in the organization, the ability to speak up and ask questions and challenge things. So that psychological safety, again, the research that we've done with Gallup and our own Workhuman IQ research has shown that if people are recognized within the last month, they feel psychologically safe within the organization. They feel like they belong. They feel like they're recognized, they're seen. And that generates that kind of overall well-being. And people who are recognized quite frequently, 25% of the employees report feeling, less burned out, less often. So that feeling of overwhelm that we have, particularly for hybrid workers, where you're neither fully in the office nor fully at home, you feel like you're always on. The research is backing that always on sentiment and the feeling of burned out. If you can reduce that for your employees, if you can retain employees for a little bit longer, if you can develop the humans that you're working with, they'll feel safer in the organization. They're more likely to stay. They're much more productive. And they're much more connected to your culture and your overall mission and vision. So there's the benefit for the employee, but also for the organization. And very often as a HR leader, you're trying to balance, both of those. You're trying to balance the needs of the organization and the needs of the individual. And recognition, celebrating life events, those kind of activities on a structured way helps to do that.
And that sort of feeds into my next question: is that how can HR executives create a genuine culture of human connection in the workplace, especially as now many, and you've answered some of that already. Many people work in a hybrid home environment. So if we're focusing on that hybrid home environment, what are the strategies that you would implement?
I'm always going to, I suppose, and Thomas, I'm going to give you the full background of how I ended up working at Workhuman. In 2016, I was doing a master's in HR in London while working there. Loved my role, but was kind of curious about why do we always see that kind of wave of turnover after the annual review and the performance benefits were paid out, bonuses were paid out, and then people would leave. And I was trying to establish, is there a better way of doing it? I came across white papers by a company called Globoforce at the time, now Workhuman, and they were advocating, instead of a once yearly bonus payout, get your peers to recognize people, micro recognition moments where you felt seen constantly. So that constant recognition generates that connectedness to the organization, but also to the people that you work with. And at a very personal level, last year I had a challenging year with health. I had a small operation on my spine, but I also did a triathlon at the end of the year. And someone based in the US sent me a celebration on our platform to recognize, dude, I know you had a tough year. They didn't go into the personal details of it, but I know you had a tough year and you did this triathlon, and like, let's celebrate it. And they had snagged photos from the triathlon website of me finishing. And it kind of speaks to how do we make our recognition better? How do we make it, it's authentic, it's personalized, it's fulfilling. And I can tell you, Thomas, I felt seen in that moment more than somebody in the over a cup of coffee, kind of celebrating it with me one-to-one. I felt seen by the organization. So when we talk about hybrid and we talk about remote and we talk about in office, how do we make all of our humans feel connected and seen? How do we generate that higher psychological safety? So it's all about recognition, all about authenticness. People who feel that they are, recognized on a regular basis feel 1.5 times more connected to their organization, almost 1.5 times more connected to their colleagues, but they also feel like their workload is more manageable and they feel less burned out. And if we celebrate life events, like, again, we're probably our best case study, and I would advise for HR, senior HR professionals to consider this, that celebrating life events like, weddings, births, new puppy, new cat, whatever it is, whatever is important to that human in their life, celebrating that again in a structured way, not just recognizing their project work, not just recognizing what their outputs, but celebrating their true life. That means that they're 3 times more likely to say that they are connected to the organization, but they're 30% more likely to stay longer with the organization, up to 5 years longer, because they feel like they belong. And then the last piece around generating that true connection, we're driving a very strong culture, like many organizations I've worked with, around ERGs. And I would encourage HR professionals to develop a really strong network of ERGs around diversity, inclusion, belonging, and acceptance, and celebrate and recognize all of your humans equally.
That feeds into my next question: is how can that enhance culture? How can all that employee appreciation, social recognition, and gratitude, because it's super important, but how does that relate to culture? How does that enhance the company culture? I know the answer, you know the answer, but let's just
we can have a discussion. This is like, I gotta say, this is one of the nicest conversations that I've had in quite a while. I'm really appreciating the questions as well. Thank you. I suppose the impact of social recognition, as I kind of hinted at earlier, it can't just be sporadic, it can't be spontaneous, and one-off once a year. It's got to be fulfilling for the employee. It's got to be equitable. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be embedded in your culture, and that takes a little while. You can't just kind of launch something, a recognition program or a celebration program, and then expect instant embedding. It takes a little while to embed in the culture, but if everybody is doing it, it's going to drive that into your culture. But it's also got to be highly personalized. Don't send recognition moments, along the lines of, "Hey, Thomas, great job today, Stuart." It should be around, "Hey, great job hosting the webinar. The amount of prep that you put into it, the detail that you put into the questions, the way that you managed my distraction and how easily I could go off on a tangent, all the personalize it, make it as fulfilling as possible for Thomas, the human." And then if you feel like that, the impact is 73%, thereabouts. You're 73% less likely to feel burned out in your day and at the end of the day. But you're also 5 times more likely to feel their organization cares about them. And again, going back to that psychological safety, going back to my own role around developing, but also retaining our talent. We need to hold talent as long as we can within the organization, not within the role. We're trying to develop people constantly, but you're 7 times as likely to have meaningful connections in the workplace. And, it gets back to that question that was often asked of people: do you have a friend at work? It's really important that you feel that connection, that safety, and that it's meaningful for people. So, and you're 10 times more likely to feel like you belong. But things that we put in place to help along those lines, we have a thing called Inclusion Advisor, which scans the text of any recognition that we put in for each other. and we'll pick up on little micro, I don't want to call them microaggressions, but maybe where it would hint you could consider different language, and it will suggest different language to you to make sure that it's as inclusive as possible. And I know that Merck have inclusion reflections built into their product, where it kind of advises them, hey, have you considered everybody that was part of this project? Have you recognized everybody you should equally? So that's kind of, going along the lines of what are the impacts of it. Greater psychological safety, greater retention of talent, more people feeling more connected to each other, but also to the organization.
And it's really building a stronger foundation for the company.
For sure.
If we look at the next question would be how can HR leaders rally the workforce around the shared vision and mission?
Well, I suppose, starting off, making sure that all of your objectives, and I'm going back to HR 101, when I'm talking about, your objectives, your mission, your vision, etc., are all aligned to the organization mission and vision. But for ourselves, we looked at, say, LinkedIn as a great case study. I worked in LinkedIn. I used the Bravo platform in LinkedIn. I didn't realize at the time that was the Workhuman platform. We white label it when we send it out to organizations. So we're almost the best kept secret in an industry, but we're changing that. An awful lot more organizations are aware that Workhuman powers their recognition. But what they found, around that shared vision and mission, that they had a 96% retention rate for all employees who received like 4 moments of recognition annually. 95% retention rate for our new hires who receive Bravo's awards. Bravo is what they call it in the organization. But it's also providing the ingredients for LinkedIn's diversity, inclusion, and belonging strategy, which helps, I suppose, retain great employees, great humans within your organization in a really tight job market. And again, going back to the kind of startling statistic of 37% of people that we surveyed are actively looking for a role within the next 12 months and looking to leave an organization. So we've had that, the great resignation or the great talent swap, and, that tsunami that followed after the COVID-19 lockdowns. But how do we retain talent? So for myself, retaining and developing talent is our key vision and mission. We're constantly trying to recognize, constantly trying to make sure that people felt, as I said, seen within the organization and psychologically safe.
The next question would be, which cultural factors will build sufficient resilience to face challenging circumstances more effectively?
Yeah, as I suppose we're going through, you mentioned challenging times, reduction in forces, etc. 3 out of 4 employees, about 72%, statistically accurately, but 3 out of 4 employees have taken on more responsibilities at work in the last year. 44% of employers haven't recognized their extra contribution. So when we talk about resilience, we're putting more workload onto people, or they feel like they're getting more workload, but we're not recognizing it. 70% of employees say morale is lower at their company at the moment due to macroeconomic factors. Again, you mentioned the economic downturn, a lot of tightening in organizations, the war that's happening in Europe, etc. But 42% of UK employers said, or employees said, that being recognized and appreciated for their work by managers and colleagues would boost morale for them and help them feel more connected. So building resilience is about, again, going back to how I felt in that moment. And it's not just that one moment. I've been recognized for other things, but that was the most startling thing for me, was how seen and appreciated I felt at that moment as a human being, not just an employee, not just a resource, not just a number, but I felt like the organization genuinely saw me and cared. And that helped me through, as I said, quite a tough year last year, personally with health issues. When you have people who see you and are there with you and share and lift you, the voice of 1,000 people recognizing you and seeing you is incredibly powerful. I don't know if you've experienced it, Thomas, yourself. I've played sports at a senior level, but I've never had 20,000 people in the Noi camp cheering for me or anything like that, you know. So the closest I've come to that feeling is having 1,000 people wish me well and, you know, be very personal and very specific about their well wishes. And that helped me. So building resilience through recognition, through psychological safety, through celebration, you know, making sure that you're recognizing that people are taking on more at the moment, and you know, helping them through that by recognizing it and acknowledging it.
When are we going to take the word resource out of human resources?
I would love that. My God, I really would. I'm 20 plus years in human resources and HR, and 20 years ago, somebody pointed out to me, I'm not a resource, I'm a human being. And it was like that was their thinking 20 years ago. So yeah, I'm fully on board with that.
Stuart, yeah, the great conversation so far. Whatever you said is absolutely awesome, and I think we all need to really take that on. Last question that I have for you today is, what are the best ways to staying more connected through creating a culture of continuous feedback?
Super question.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a poll, so please do respond to the poll.
Sorry, Thomas, just, you know, you nailed it with continuous feedback. That's how we get that feeling. So even though I'm over 20 years working in HR, I'm a senior director, I love my role, I've studied, I've worked, etc. I still connect with my manager on a weekly basis to have a discussion about how are things going, you know, what learnings have I had in the last week or two, what help do I need, etc. And seeking feedback. I constantly seek feedback from not just, you know, my manager and my peers, but also people on my team. I'm constantly seeking feedback. I need to continue to grow and develop. The more frequently that employees check in with their managers, the more psychologically safe that they feel. Almost 50% of employees say they check in with the manager at least weekly, like myself. But it's the most important way of staying connected, staying, you know, seeking out that culture of staying on target, delivering for the organization, but also developing yourself. I'd encourage it. And I'm super conscious of time. I know that you've bounced out a few polls, and I don't know.
We've got the responses. So does your organization encourage continuous feedback? And the responses so far, yes, it is top priority for 35% of the respondents. Yes, but it is not top priority. That's 41% of the respondents. And the answer no for 23% of the respondents so far. The poll is still open, but the numbers seem to be around that.
Nice, interesting, great.
And
we need to move that 20% to, you know, a smaller number and try and drive that continuous connection.
Exactly. And Stuart, thank you so much for this session. And I'm guessing that if people want to reach out to you and get some more information on the report and also on how Workhuman can help them on their journey and to build a better culture, then they can reach out to you directly. Or of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you reach out to us, we can always put you in touch with Workhuman. So that concludes our fireside chat. Thank you very much for being with us, Stuart. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And absolutely super happy for anybody to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just flag that it was through HR Congress, so that I'm not looking at LinkedIn requests coming in and I don't know who you are. But also, Thomas, I'm so sorry. Jonas, you did ask me a question in the chat in a DM. I'll answer you directly on a DM as well. But Thomas, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the questions and the conversation. Next time you're in Ireland, let's catch up and grab a coffee and a chat on some of those things in a little bit more detail.
Sounds perfect, Stuart. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our first session. Our next session is coming up. It's a keynote session. Presentation title is Boosting Profit, Productivity, Retention through a Culture of Employee Experience Excellence. Our speaker is Maria Scholma, Chief Human Resource Officer and Head of Employee Experience and CSR at Nationale Nederlanden. Since 2018, Maria Scholma has been MT member and Director of Employee Experience at Nationale Nederlanden, an international insurance company with a HQ in the Netherlands that offers protection, savings, and investment solutions to more than 850,000 customers in Spain. Since that date, Maria leads the area that integrates all the departments that participate in creating an excellent employee experience for more than 600 people who work in the insurer. HR, communications and branding, CSR, and faculty management, seeking the right balance between the aspirations and expectations of employees and the policies that can be implemented. In addition, Maria has been the foundational piece in the part that has made it possible for Nationale Nederlanden to be a 100% agile company. Hello, Maria, good to have you with us. Just finishing off your introduction, an important element to facilitate innovation, orientation toward people, ultimately improving the customer experience, as well as in the creation of the company's new hybrid work model, designed in collaboration with employees and constantly evolving. Maria, welcome to our session. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Thomas. And sorry for giving you such a hard time with all the Dutch names, because my name is very, very Dutch. The company name is very, very, very Dutch. But you,
no.
did great.
I hope I'm pronouncing everything correctly, but please do let me know if I'm not.
Yes, I mean you introduced me great, and my name is Mariah. I always say it's like Mariah Carey, but I don't sing, so let's not go there. But that's the most easy way to pronounce my name.
Mariah, thank you so much.
And thank you all of the people joining online. I think, as Curtis said, we have really a great international crowd of people from Europe, from Saudi Arabia, from Australia, from the US. So that's really, really, really great. I'm going to try to stick to 20 minutes so that at least there's some time for Q&A. So please ask me questions, because I think that's always the best proof that the presentation is interesting. I'm building my presentation around, let's say, 6 chapters that you see here on the screen. I'm not going to have a lot of slides, just let's say some guidance through my story. First, I want to talk about what is employee experience and why is it. I mean, we did take out, let's say, resources out of human resources, but employee experience is more than just a new name. I want to let you know how can employee experience really change your company, how improving your, let's say, employee experience can also improve your customer experience, because I think that's what we are looking for. What are the keys to creating an employee engaged culture, the role of personalization in creating an employee experience, and also share a little bit what I think are the challenges in improving our customer our employee experience in the future. So that's how I'm going to share my story. So let's start with the first one. Why is employee experience more than a new name for HR? And actually, we had this discussion also within the company, because when I started, in Spain at least, because I am for 19 years within the company, but mostly in the Netherlands. I'm here in Spain for 6 years, and when I started, I was indeed Chief Human Resources Officer. And after, let's say, 1 year, when we also did the full agile implementation within the company, we also looked into ways to, let's say, work more efficiently and effectively in terms of servicing our employees. And at that point, we said, let's combine the area of human resources with facilities, with CSR and diversity and inclusion, also communications and branding, and all of that together to really work as one department. And for example, the first question I got was, but okay, communication and branding, how can that be HR? I said, no, it's not HR, but it's so linked, let's say, to the daily business of an experience of employees, that I really think it's important to merge them all together. And what I did, let's say, to show that it's not, let's say, other departments reporting to HR, but really creating this integrated experience. And what it said on the slide, to take into account both, let's say, salary, the monetary part of reward, but also the more, that's what we call emotional salary, the emotional part of reward, is that we created this employee experience journey. And I think this is something that, let's say, looking at customers, let's say, customer experience journey, I think most people know. But employee experience journey basically is the same. Is, let's say, drawing through what phases is an employee going within the company. And what I said before about, for example, communications and branding, the first touch point that an employee has with a company is the brand. So we are used to thinking about what is your employee value proposition, but what is the importance of a brand in that, and the reputation of a company? What do people read in the newspaper, in magazines? So it really starts already with how do you present yourself outside as a company. Maybe your employees or to-be employees are customers. So you should have a positive image as of the first moment that a possible employee is in touch with your company. So it doesn't start with recruitment, with employee value proposition. It starts with being aware that the reputation of your company, that the brand of your company is the first touch point of an employee with your company, and you should focus on that. And another point that I would like to highlight in this employee experience journey is what we call living nationale Nederlander, which I really think is the key of why it's so important also to have these different teams together in one department called employee experience, because this is everything that has to do with culture within the company, your values, but also your workspace. How is the what tools are you using? Do you have a good place to work in the company, but also at home, of course? So that's what we call living nationale Nederlander, and that is really that really touches all the different areas that I mentioned before. Another important part is recognition. What I mentioned before about salary and emotional salary is we really look at it from, let's say, a total reward perspective. So a person should be recognized for what he or she is doing, not only in terms of salary, but also we have a recognition program where people can receive, let's say, votes from their co-workers, which is really, let's say, a new version of the employee of the month concept that we tend to think it's old-fashioned, but if you do it in a fun and up-to-date way, you see that it really works. And these are some key elements that I would like to highlight in our employee experience journey, and why I think it's so important that the departments that I mentioned before are really working together. So communication and branding as the first touch point of a possible employee with the company. Facilities, HR, CSR, because also your social footprint and the things that you are doing for society are really important for employees nowadays. Creating a culture of diversity and inclusion. Everything is linked to each other. So it's not just putting these departments together in one floor or renaming HR. It's really building an integrated vision together with the people who work on everything that has to do with employee experience. So much more than just renaming an HR department. Then the second thing that I wanted to highlight, how can employee experience really revolutionize your business? I mean, the title of my presentation in the announcement was how to boost profit. I think, to be honest, that's very, very difficult to have a direct relationship between employee experience and company profit. But I do think that if you focus on what we say, we're not looking for another colleague, we're looking for you, that every person who works at the company is important, regardless of the position that they hold. It's the person who makes the professional. If you make them feel valued, also what Curtis was saying before, if you make them feel seen, and you generate a favorable climate for the person working in the company, it can generate great benefits. And I would not necessarily say in the first place profit, but I think if you have a positive employee experience, you can really change company philosophy and values such as integration, care, motivation, but also innovation. New ideas are thriving, and that, of course, in the end, is a way to improve your company results, to make the customer experience better. So it's creating an environment in which each person can thrive and can really develop to its best potential. And that in the end creates benefits that are much more important than just financial benefits for the company, because I think that's always an indirect effect of what you do from an employee experience perspective. So also with regards to this topic, how can you improve your customer experience with offering excellent employee experience? And that's what I also said before. If you look at the results from a customer experience perspective, according to external reports, we see that we, for years in a row, are the most recommended insurance company in Spain, and we far outperform the competitors. And we see three main aspects. Customers, they feel appreciated, they have high satisfaction, and they feel that the process of purchasing our products is agile and simple. And I think that demonstrates that our commitment to offering the best service to our customers by improving, let's say, the experience that our employees have, I think that will always have a repercussion in the service that you give to your customers. And that is always, let's say, what we have in mind, creating a positive environment for our employees, which in the end will pay off in how they treat our customers. Because I think that's also a very simple, let's say, societal thing, that if you treat others how you want to be treated, that also goes for if you treat your people well, they will treat your customers well. So I think it's a great tandem. Then the next point: what are the keys to really create this employee experience, employee engaged culture? And what I would like to mention as a great example is our hybrid working model. We call it Somos 4.0. We are 4.0, And we talked a little bit about the pandemic and the impact on employee experience. And there's a lot of publications out there on hybrid working. And to be honest, we were already working in a hybrid way before the pandemic, as one of the few companies in Spain. But what we said is, okay, the pandemic did speed up, let's say, some kind of development. And what we did is we asked our employees, actually, how would you like to design this hybrid working model? So it's not up to us as leaders of the company to define how you should work. And also that is different for each person within the company. And maybe a model that was working before the pandemic is not working today, and will also not the model that we have today will not be working tomorrow. So we have to acknowledge the times are changing, and we have to be open to continue to adapt to every circumstance that occurs. So what we do is basically every few months, I would say, we ask our employees and our leaders what works in this hybrid way of working, what doesn't work, what would you like to change, how do you see that our installations in the office are working, do you have a good workspace at home? We see, for example, that having a strong culture is really, really important, but also in a hybrid working model, it's very difficult to keep the strong connection between employees. So we are not a company that says, okay, you need to come to the office every day or every 2 days, but we really leave it up to, we do have some rules. I do think you have to set some rules. But we really say, okay, employees are the key in the company, so they should tell us what is the way of working. And we have seen that, let's say, working 100% from home, it works in terms of results. Does it have downsides? Yes, you lose the connection between people. So how can we find a solution for that? But let employees give input on how they see that. And I think looking at our engagement results that have been over 8 in the past years and very, very, very stable, it shows that if you involve employees in creating an employee experience, and for example, in this new way of or hybrid way of working, that really, really, really pays off. That brings me to my 5th point. I did show you before the employee experience journey, but obviously that's a very generalized picture. It's the general steps that an employee passes through within the company. But within each of these steps, you have to acknowledge that no employee is the same. That doesn't mean that you cannot have, let's say, general rules or general policies, but in the end, personalization is really, really the future. That's why we say flexibility is really, really important. Looking at your processes, looking at your policies, but then really asking again the employees, how do you see it? How can we adjust as much as possible to your priorities in order to, in the end, make them more effective in offering service to our customers. And that means that for example, that some people work 100% from home. Other people, because of their job, have to come to the office more often. But there is no one size fits all. So we really let our employees choose how they want to adapt, looking at the future. And in that sense, to my last point, because I already at my 20 minutes, I see time is flying. What are the upcoming challenges? And I really didn't want to put here artificial intelligence, for example, because I think, let's say that years ago we said, oh, computers are going to take over our lives. I really think that AI is one of the things that will change the way how we work, but it will never replace humans. So, but we have to stay open to adapting to changes in society. We have to stay open for the new profiles that we need. And what I really believe is that looking at employee experience, what becomes more and more important in the future is forgetting about job specifics. It's much more about the skills that you have as a person, the agility that you have to develop. So it's like what we also saw during the pandemic. Some work becomes obsolete. And for example, because of AI, some work will become obsolete, but you as an employee have the responsibility, and also you as a company, to work on your skills, to reskill, to upskill, to learn new things. So also in our employee experience, that is a really a crucial part, to make sure that people can develop, that each person individually can develop, have his or her own experience within the company, personalized, with a real focus on having an excellent experience for our employees, and in that way having an excellent service and experience for our customers. So that was fast and briefly my story, Thomas. So I hope that people have some questions.
Mariah, thank you very much. So did I pronounce your name correctly, Mariah? Is that the right pronunciation?
Yes, perfect.
Wonderful,
Perfect.
wonderful. So Mariah, we do thank you so much for this this great session. We do have a few questions here, and we do have a little bit of time to go through them. I've got a question here. How do you keep the process simple? One contact person to client, or this is from Vardesh Taken.
I assume that you talk about how do you keep the whole employee experience process simple. And in that sense, we have, let's say, we still, I always say what's in a name, but we still call it HR business partners. I would like to say employee experience business partners. So we have, let's say, a single point of contact for each of the departments that we have within the company, and those people say, okay, I have a question. Based on the content of the question, that person, that business partner, is going to the, let's say, the right expertise center within the employee experience department. So we do have single point of contacts for our employees. Also, we have, let's say, the normal digital tools, let's say, where employees can make requests depending on the topic, which can go from, okay, there is a leak in the building, to I have a question about a loan that I want from the company. So it's a combination between, let's say, digital and having this single point of contact. For clients, I think it's a little bit more traditional, in the sense that we have our website where people can ask questions. We have a call center, and what is very important here in Spain is that we have our own network of sales agents, which are over 2,000. So if you contract a product, which here in Spain people still like to do with a real person instead of online, is that you go to your sales office, you have your own agent, let's say, that's helping you with contracting the product.
Jeanette has a question here. Jeanette says, I really like your visual of the employee experience journey. If an organization is looking to review and revamp all aspects of EE, is there somewhere you would suggest in the most important place to start focusing on?
Good question. Let me think. I mean, I think the most important, and I also relate a little bit to the question that Aurélie was asking, like, you know, do you have personas? I know this is a very common way to draw, let's say, customer experience journeys. I did use it in the past. we didn't use it in designing our employee experience here in Spain. But I do think, let's say, working with personas in creating an employee experience, I would definitely recommend it. And that takes time because it needs you need to interview a lot of employees, let's say from different levels, from different areas to do that. But always start, let's say, with your employee in mind. So let's say creating personas and further, let's say, personalizing this employee experience journey, I think is really important.
Okay, we've got a few more questions here. How to thrive in the effect of digital transformation on building employee experience?
In that sense, I really think that the combination between digital and human is really important. Also, what I mentioned before, for example, within employee experience, within the different teams that I mentioned that we have, let's say the different centers of expertise, we do use the same system. Let's say so the same front office system for employees to ask their question, and based on the content, it's going to either facilities or even IT. IT has the same system to HR, so a common front office, a common system, and then that combined with always the possibility to ask your question to your business partner, so to this single point of contact that is there to help you. So as I said before, I don't believe in, let's say, digitalizing everything. It helps in creating efficiencies, but never without having this personal human interaction. And we do the same actually for our customers. You say we can do a lot online, you can do a lot based on data and digitalization, but the human element is crucial. And I really firmly believe that also in the future, this will remain crucial.
We have a question from Natasha. How do you keep it manageable in the workload of a HRBP? Is there, for example, a good digital workflow system and Google type handbook information to take away part of the time-consuming activities?
I mean, to be honest, I'm open to receive any recommendations on this one, because I don't have a good digital workflow system. The workload of these business partners definitely is high. I do believe that, let's say top down, really making sure that your leaders take responsibility first for their people, and also for, let's say, the typical HR or employee experience kind of topics, instead of always saying, I don't know, that's an HR thing. No, you are responsible of managing your own people and giving them feedback and helping them with that question. So we try to really put the responsibility where it is, and really use these business partners for the really specialized topics. But I admit this is difficult, because also the type of people who have these roles, the first thing that they want to do is to help and to take away work from people, and saying no in that sense is the biggest challenge that I think we all recognize.
Vagita's asking, how does the HR fraternity ensure that no one can pour cold water to water down various milestones attained collectively, and how do we increase the pace of recognition in order to improve on employee experience journeys?
I don't know if I fully understand the question, to be quite honest.
All right. Well, we can. I think we can get back to that question. So, Vagita, if you'd like to get in touch with Mariah
Please
later on and maybe
do.
have a conversation on LinkedIn, I'm guessing LinkedIn is the best way to reach you.
Yes, LinkedIn is definitely a good way to reach me. And indeed, as Curtis was saying before, please mention that you were in this session, because I get a lot of CVs and questions from people who want to do business, which I think also we all recognize. But I would love to answer your questions via LinkedIn if possible. So please reach out to me, and also in the handout. You have my email address, so you can also just send me a direct email, whatever you prefer. And I do recognize that this has been a fast session, but I try to include as much as possible.
All right, thank you so much for this invigorating session. It's been great to have you with us. Hope to see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude this session. And now we're moving on to our last session of today, which is a panel discussion, understanding the role of great company culture in high performance leadership. We shall be joined by Jim Rothman, Global Head of Culture, Inclusion and Belonging, Volvo Cars. Hello, Jim. Great to have you with us.
Hey.
Also, Hayley Farrell, Global Wellbeing and Resilience Director and Affinity Group Program Manager at Arcadis. Hayley, great to have you. And last but not least, Donna Louise Fitzpatrick, Manager of Talent Development from Workhuman.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. Great to have you with us.
Yes, good to be here. Thanks, Thomas.
So let's we've got a good half an hour. So let's kick off, because we got some good questions that we prepared for the panel. So I'd like to, or would everyone like to do a very quick introduction? Would that be a good idea potentially? Just a couple of words. Donna.
Sure, I can start. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. To briefly introduce myself, my name is Donna Louise Fitzpatrick, and I am a global talent leader, accredited coach, and certified coach trainer. I have over a decade of experience in the people development space, where I have led the learning function at 2 organizations. I've created hundreds of learning programs, and I have supported the growth and development of thousands of learners through one-to-one coaching and customized learning solutions. And I literally wake up every day excited to go to work, because corny as it sounds, but I love my job. And as a people advocate who is passionate about inclusivity, I am on a mission to make growth and development accessible to all, so everyone can feel the same sense of purpose, fulfillment, and joy in their careers too. I have been very fortunate to work with the tech companies such as Facebook, Twitter, and today I feel truly grateful to represent Workhuman in today's discussion alongside visionary thought leaders, Jeff and of course Hayley today. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Hayley, just a couple of words. Not much time, but yeah, just a few words.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas. Difficult to follow, Donna. Thank you. Love the ambition and the aspiration. So I'm Hayley Farrell, Global Wellbeing and Resilience Director for Arcadis. I am also the Global Affinity Group Program Manager. So there's quite a lot of intersectional work in terms of looking after our underserved and underrepresented communities across 36,000 people in 72 countries, as well as looking at well-being from a systemic point of view, as well as supporting individuals to make sure that we have inclusive and diverse options. I'll pass over to you, Jim.
Great. Thanks, Hayley. And Donna is Jim Rotman, and I'm currently the global head of culture and inclusion and belonging for Volvo Cars. We're in 100 plus countries and with 45,000 employees. And prior to that, I was the global head of diversity and inclusion for a biotech company based out of Switzerland. So I'm passionate about having inclusive cultures and giving people a voice who don't have a voice, and culture is the foundation for that.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Hayley, Donna. So let's kick off. Our first question is: what role does culture play in empowering leaders to drive transformation change across their organizations? And Jim, I'd like you to start on that one, if it's okay.
Yeah, thanks. Wow, it's like the most powerful thing you can have in your toolkit is the culture. If you know what it is, and if you know how to work within it, because sometimes culture confuses leaders, especially new leaders, because a lot of it is unsaid. It's not written down. It's how people act, it's how people behave. And so it is, if you can really get a hold of the culture as a leader, you really can make magic happen. We talk about it as being a compass. So as you're sitting in a meeting or with your team or trying to make a big decision, you can fall back on those things that support your culture, like your values, and be able to find that direction you should be going to make a good decision.
Hayley, would you like to add to that?
Absolutely. I think for me, and I was listening to the session earlier around employee engagement and employee experience. And I think for me, how can it help leaders drive change? So how can culture help the leader? I think it's about listening. It's about a needs assessment. It's about understanding where our people are at and where our people want to go. And I think sometimes we envision a culture and we set that without the consultation piece, without understanding diverse needs of our people and helping us all kind of, I always use the term sing from the same hymn sheet, in terms of rather than setting a culture and beating everybody with a stick and hoping that they fit into that culture, why don't we create it together? And I think at the moment, the challenge is we've come out of the pandemic. What the culture was before the pandemic is very different for many people in terms of individual priorities, what they want work to be, and what do we see the future of work. And I think we're trying to juggle between how do we carry on a culture of successful business for 30, 40 years over and above this change dynamic, but also be conscious of future generations. So I think it's a collaborative piece. And I think leaders can really leverage understanding those needs and building the future together, but we have to be open to change. And I think, change and transformation is part of culture, isn't it? And it's not an overnight fix. So there is patience, and I think definitely just that collaborative approach with our people, but also across all departments. It doesn't just sit in the people function. It doesn't just sit in the ED&I space, in the well-being space, in the safety. It's a collaborative approach.
Very well said, Hayley. And Donna, Louise, I'm sure you have something great to add to that.
I can definitely speak, adding to what Jim and Hayley has said is, I absolutely 100% agree. And I guess again, coming from that advocacy piece of, putting people first, I believe that a human-centric culture is key to success in today's work environment. And to Hayley's point as well, change is constant. I think embracing change now is something that, is going to be really, really important for us going forward. And of course, culture being that tool in our toolkit, as Jim said as well. But to briefly expand on this, at Workhuman, we understand the power of personal connection and trust. And even Stuart touched on that as well earlier when he was joining the company during the pandemic. And everybody reached out to him, his manager, all his peers company-wide, to help him feel that connection and that warm welcome. So personal connections and trust in fostering that thriving culture is super important. Therefore, by prioritizing, open communication, empathy, active listening, leaders can establish an environment where employees feel valued, they feel heard, and they feel supported. And I guess this in turn cultivates a sense of, trust, as we know, is the bedrock for thriving teams, but it also cultivates a sense of engagement and belonging, which are essential for driving transformational change. Now, what's super interesting is that this isn't hearsay. Studies have shown that organizations with a strong recognition culture experience significant benefits, with research even demonstrating annual savings of up to 14 million euro in employee turnover costs for companies with 10K employees. So this statistic alone emphasizes the financial impact of fostering a human-centric culture that appreciates and recognizes employees' accomplishments. And I guess beyond the financial benefits, I would add that, cultivating a human-centric culture, one that, embraces that recognition approach, will enhance your retention rates, improve your well-being, and, boost morale, which in turn increases productivity. So I guess a win-win for empowering our leaders to drive transformational change.
Indeed. Thank you, Donna Louise. Hayley, I'll start with you on the next question. How can leaders still achieve high performance levels during these times of change, some of which have been hugely disruptive to workforces?
Thanks, Thomas. So I see change as a potential hazard in the workplace if it isn't managed correctly. And what I mean by that is, we talk about well-being, diversity, inclusion, belonging, and a culture where people feel psychologically safe. I mean, most people don't like change at the best of times, regardless of whether it's in work or in their personal life. And when we kind of decide to make a change, we should consider how that is going to impact our people. I think what happened to us is COVID hit. We didn't have time to think about. We had to react for a lot of organizations. Yes, we could have had emergency response, but often we think about the physical implication of an emergency response. Do we have everybody on email address? Do we know where everybody lives? Does everybody have a laptop, a desktop, mobile phones to be able to work remotely, if that wasn't the case beforehand? But often we don't consider the psychological hazards or psychosocial hazards that will impact people, and how that impacts their mental health and well-being and that feeling of inclusion and belonging. So I think change is something that needs to be managed effectively in terms of consultation, in terms of keeping people informed, up to date, and keep checking in with them. How are they feeling along the change cycle? Where are we at along the journey? And I think that in turn will help drive high performance levels. I think high performance levels in themselves also depends on I wouldn't say the individual specifically, it could be the type of job people are performing as well. And what I mean by that is that in itself a culture that can breed a lack of inclusion or a lack of sense of well-being because there's an expectation to deliver. So I think it's also about being realistic, prioritizing, and being very clear around the direction of travel in terms of, we want to perform. How do we make sure you've got the right environment, that you feel included, you feel safe, you feel like you can challenge and be innovative? But for me, that all comes down to making sure that you're managing the risks that will prevent people from being able to do that. And you can't do that without consultation and keeping people in the decision-making process.
Wonderful. Donna Louise.
I would say that this is definitely a top priority for leaders. And, in my role, not meaning to beat the recognition drum, but I have seen firsthand the power of recognition and its ability to drive performance, even in challenging circumstances, and situations. So what has been interesting in that, from our work, Human Workplace Index survey, which actually Stuart touched on earlier as well, we discovered a number of concerning trends, and one of which was burnout. And this has sadly become a prevalent issue faced by many organizations. But with recognition and reward programs, such as, the Workhuman Cloud, this literally provides a game-changing solution in our current hybrid working environment, with, research proving that employees who are recognized in their day-to-day being, I think it's like 73% less likely to experience burnout, like 73%. So that's huge, considering burnout is an alarmingly increasing outcome on the list of employee impact during times of change. But not only does recognition programs, significantly reduce burnout in employees, the solution again is backed by data showing that, I think it's over 62 maybe percent of employees say feeling appreciated and rewarded justly for their work is one of their top motivators to stay with a company. So these programs do go beyond simple appreciation. They really are the secret sauce, I guess, for helping organization achieve high performance during times of change by creating that culture where people feel appreciated and valued.
Thank you, Donna Louise. Well said. And Jim, I'm sure you have some interesting things to say on this topic as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at culture as probably was something that people weren't thinking about when we went through a lot of these changes that are happening, and because people probably didn't talk about it a lot. What's our culture? How do we reinforce it? How do we make it real every day with behaviors? How do we make sure our leaders are living our values? And when change happens, I think that if the company has a strong culture, then it can lean back into it and can use that as that anchor. And if you have a caring culture that talks about, giving people respect and listening and getting people more inclusive and making them feel safe, and then going back to that culture that you have is going to get you where you want to go. If you have a culture that is about driving results and following the facts, that might not be a culture that survives in today's world. And so it may be a time that when change happens is to say, we have the right culture for today. Or you may say, we may need to rethink what it actually takes to compete in the marketplace today. Because their strategies can be replicated, and what gets you to your goal and your profits and your vision and your mission is the culture is how you get there. And so I think change is a time to reevaluate what that culture is. Not necessarily throw it out, but maybe rethink parts of it.
Great. And our third question is, for global organizations, culture often varies considerably between countries. How can leaders create a coherent company culture that also includes everyone? And Jim, maybe you can start on that as well.
Yeah, that's a challenge that every company has, is how do you have across a global company not necessarily a consistent culture everywhere, because there is cultural differences. So what we do is we have kind of anchors. So there's some things that are not negotiable where you are in the world, and it's about how you treat people. And so we have certain things in our culture that, like I said, are core, and they're grounded in how we describe our values around integrity and trust, and it's around inclusion and collaboration. And so trust and integrity probably look pretty similar around the world, maybe not everywhere, but collaboration and inclusion might look a little bit different, but they're still grounded in our values. So I think you have to find some anchors that don't define specific behaviors, but they define a set of core values. So that's what we've been doing.
Thank you, Jim. Donna Louise, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with Jim's excellent points. And I would add that, companies can create an inclusive culture by also addressing something that I feel passionate about, and that is unconscious bias, which can lead to employees, feeling alienated, overlooked for promotions, etc. And the hard cost to a company's bottom line is startling, because those who perceive bias become disengaged. It zaps their innovation, in turn costing, I think it was US companies, something like $500 and something billion, something crazy every year, according to Gallup. So given this important research, unconscious bias should be a leader's top priority. And one example, of how this can be achieved is where Workhuman has developed the Inclusion Advisor tool. Now this is pretty cool, and it's AI-powered micro-coaching feature, and it helps organizations to mitigate unconscious bias by promoting more inclusive language in even their recognition messages. So by using this tool, our leaders are ensuring that their communication is free from bias, in turn, of course, embracing diversity and, a culture that includes everybody.
And I'm guessing everyone can get in touch with you to learn a little bit more about that tool as well.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Donna Louise. And Hayley, anything to add from your side?
Yes, I think building on what Jim said around setting a baseline in terms of, what are we trying to achieve and how are we going to get there together? And I think culture as a word can often mean different things to different people depending on where you are in the world. Underserved and underrepresented communities can mean very different things depending on where you live, and what your ethnicity is and what your heritage is. So I think it's very important to have cornerstones or pillars in terms of what do we want to achieve as an organization. But I also think those need to be lived and breathed. We can say we want to do things, but once you've kind of set that tone, how do we keep people accountable? How do we, Donna talks about unconscious bias. Brilliant, but what about bystander intervention? How do we call out behaviors that might prevent our culture from being lived and breathed? And what are the consequences? Also, authenticity. How do we authentically live that culture in a global organization? And I think often it's about the feel. I like the tone from the top, mood in the middle, felt at the front. That demonstrates, the three layers of how the mood in the middle is around management. The felt at the front is the people that are living, eating, breathing, work. Well, I shouldn't say work, but our business every single day. I'll also just add in two other things here before we move on. Is we talk a lot about psychological safety, which is creating an environment where people feel like they can belong. They feel like they can bring their self to work, be listened to, and be included. However, it's very different to psychological health and safety, which is about managing hazards in the workplace that prevent people from being psychologically safe. Now, I know it sounds like a little bit of a jumble, but Donna spoke about reward and recognition. We've spoken a lot about change management. It goes on, job design, social factors at work, bullying and harassment. It's not just one thing in isolation that's going to create that culture. It's a number of things that are happening across a number of departments. It might traditionally have sat in the HR space or the people space, but actually it's things like sustainability, because of sustainable workforce, reward and recognition. It's about diversity or harassment and bullying. It's about safety. In the same way we look at physical safety, it's about psychological safety. So I think culture is about a lot of these elements coming together and creating an environment where people can thrive, and they can feel psychologically safe. But we can't just expect psychological safety if we're not looking at the factors in the environment that are preventing us from getting there. And at a global level, there's a lot of different things we need to consider to make sure that it is diverse and it speaks to everybody in all corners.
Very well said. Thank you, Hayley. Last question is, what's your one takeaway on the future of leadership? And I'd like Donna Louise to start on that.
Thanks, Tom. So to lean into my experience in learning and development and in professional coaching, I guess along with Workhuman's philosophy, my one takeaway on the future of leadership is the importance of fostering a culture of trust, inclusion, belonging, and continuous growth. We are living in an age where change is a constant, where hybrid and remote working has been, a valuable opportunity for growth, with companies reimagining, the traditional approaches to support their employees through the new working landscape. And with this rapid pace of change, upskilling leaders is no longer just about technical competencies. Soft skills, which I think should be recoined, they're not so soft, but soft skills, because everyone knows them as soft, are becoming even more essential. Because when leaders actively and empathically listen to their teams and create, I know we've mentioned it, but it's true, psychological safety, a psychologically safe environment where everyone feels safe to speak up, safe to bring their whole self to work, and celebrated for their individual contributions, trust and engagement will flourish, leading to, the increased productivity, the increased innovation, increased resilience, which is important for, change, but all of which are essential as well ingredients in fueling the evolution of prosperous brands today.
Wonderful, Donna. Hayley, from your side.
Wow, if there was a silver bullet, the future of leadership. I'd like to hope that the organizations that have really taken on board the impact of what happened to all of us over 3 years that's going to continue. I think a lot of people might have fallen into the trap of we'll do things how we used to do them because now life has gone back to a little bit of what we might call normal. So I'd like to see the future of leadership is also just pausing. I think we didn't pause enough after COVID to reflect on how things can be done differently. There are some great organizations that are doing it. However, there I think are a lot of organizations and people alike. I think the thing I would also like to see for the future of leadership is more of an adult to adult paradigm shift in terms of employees are adults and the organization is an adult and everybody is striving towards the same goal. And how do we come up with those solutions together? Last point, I think the future of leadership is consideration for, if we think of our age demographic within the organizations operating today and the future employee value propositions and talent attraction, we need to think about that in terms of what does the next 5-10 years look like. I did say that was my last. One more. Let's not think about our solution today. Let's think about our solution for what it's going to look like in 10 years' time, because it's going to take a while to change things. So be patient with the journey.
Exactly. Thank you, Hayley. Jim, any last words to this?
Yeah, of course. And there's been a couple of comments in the chat to me. I'll follow up on through LinkedIn if possible. And I'm going to answer one at the very end. I think what leaders need, there's two things. Leaders need to move from being a professional to being a human. And sometimes that's not so easy for people because they've been taught to be professional and have barriers and not be empathetic and drive results. And so it's about moving from being a professional to being a human. And I'm completely fascinated right now with the whole aspect around becoming more ethical. And by ethical, I mean is that you know your values, you know what you stand for, and that when there's these tough decisions that are out there today and there isn't a guide for them, like what to do with artificial intelligence, what to do with a lot of things that are coming up every single day, is that you need to be grounded in a sense of ethics and values. And that's personal work you have to do, so that when you get that terrible decision that you have to make, that you have a clear way and to make it, and then you can wake up in the morning and feel good that you lived your values and it was an ethical decision. And so I think that's going to be something more and more people are doing. I'm trying to figure out how we incorporate that mindset of ethics not being compliance, but being about values. And the one last comment in the chat was around proliferation of inhibiting a workplace culture. And this is not something I came up with, but I've been told over my lifetime, is that your culture is defined by the worst behavior you allow. So your culture is defined by the worst behavior that you allow. So if you're sitting in a meeting and somebody rolls their eyes or talks over somebody and nobody corrects it, then that defines your culture. And so if you really want to kind of move that culture forward, is to be very vigilant about one single act of bad behavior needs to be corrected immediately. Because if it's allowed to happen, it will proliferate, because it's like, well, yeah, Bob did that, or Jane did that, or so-and-so did that, and they're a senior leader. And so I think that's the one thing you have to be maniacally kind of like on. It's like no bad behaviors. So that's the answer to one of the questions, because I think that for me, that's something that I try to live every day.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Everyone, thank you so much for this discussion. Donna, Louise, Hayley, Jim, thank you for your contribution. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm guessing if people want to get in touch with you, LinkedIn would be the best portal to get connected, or through us. If anyone has any questions, then we're more than happy to put you in touch with the panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our 3 sessions for today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for the speakers. And if you'd like to revisit the session, you can revisit it. It's going to be available on demand. Also, if your colleagues or peers would like to see the sessions, it's also going to be possible to still sign up for it and view the recording later on. I also like to thank our sponsor, our partner, Workhuman, for making this possible. And if you'd like any more information on their solutions and what they represent in the market, then feel free to get in touch with us, or of course get in touch with them directly. Please do join us for the next session, which is going to be on the 25th of July, taking diversity, equity, and inclusion to the next level. Thank you very much for being with us today, and good morning, good evening, and good night.